of the slides where I can. Okay, now to give a clarity, we are onto Azure's one of the exams from where I have picked up this particular topic, AZ104, in which I'm going to talk majorly about configuring our virtual machines. Now, during these sessions, if you're having any specific queries, you can definitely post them in the chat. Now, since it's a free webinar, I would definitely have a leverage to decide which query I can pick, which query I can ignore. But once we are into a real time, once we are into a scenarios, okay, now our training session is going to be more of not just learning bits and pieces. We will learn things into bits and pieces, and then we will club them all. We will create our own scenario out of it, and we are going to execute those scenarios in real time. Now, the reason why I asked if any of you have joined open hack sessions from Microsoft, these are the sessions where we bombard with all real-time scenarios and we execute them in full-fledged. So I'm going to implement pretty much similar fashion over here, as well as I'm also going to give you a step-by-step guide to the labs, the initial level labs, so that people can get mastered. You don't need to have a trainer next to you while you're working on your labs. That's what I mean. That's the reason why I said I'm going to give you full-fledged access to all your labs and all your accesses, right? Okay, now coming back to the topic, right? Coming back to the topic, let's stick on to our agenda for the day, where we are going to look into, first thing we are going to look into what exactly is cloud computing. Now, even before we get into the cloud computing, right? So let's understand. So we are going to, as I told you, one of the core technical topic on which we are going to discuss today is configuring a virtual machine, and we are going to host our website on top of that specific virtual machine. Now, before that, let me give a bit of background with regards to how the technology has been evolved and what exactly has been happened in these days. So initially, if you said, let's say, for example, if Ranjit wanted to start off with, if Ranjit, just give me a second. Yeah, there we go. Yeah, if Ranjit wanted to start off with an organization, maybe 20 years from now, 20 years before from now, maybe somewhere in 2003 or so, he had to buy his own infrastructure. He had to buy his own server. On top of his own server, he might have to install and deploy his own operating system. And on top of that, he would run his own applications. So this is where his applications are running. So whatever the website hosting or whatever it is. And then, so he will have his own operating system, which would have been like his own Windows or Linux operating system on top of his own hardware, which would include his RAM, processor, so if he had to make it robust, he had to make it scalable, he had to invest more and more on the hardware first before he would even think of scaling. Now, how many of you heard in the past that the servers have been crashed due to heavy traffic coming on these servers? Have you heard of anything like this? If you have heard of this, type yes in the chat. Servers getting crashed due to heavy traffic. I can see some of the thumbs ups. That's really good, right? So yes, so this is a very common issue that can be very easily resolved by configuring cloud computing infrastructure. You see, we did not even got into understanding the benefits of getting into cloud computing. I already started giving you the benefits of cloud computing. That's how powerful it is. You can automate the scalability on the cloud and you can pay for what you use. That's how beautiful it is. That's why you walk into any organization, they will have their implementation of cloud infrastructure today. Okay, coming back to the infrastructure which I was talking about. So this is how initially the infrastructure works. Hardware, on top of it, you'll install the operating system of your choice, and on top of that, you'll run your own applications, right? And later, what happened? Later, technology got evolved, and it's from investing on a single hardware for a single operating system and for single application within your single hardware. you have got introduced to virtualization. I don't know how many of you heard of virtualization. If you heard of virtualization, type V in the chat so that I understand you already are familiar with what is virtualization, why you need to virtualize your resources. Okay, so what happens in virtualization is on top of your hardware, you will have, you will not install your operating system, rather you'll install your hypervisor. On top of this hypervisor, you will deploy your own required hardware, virtualized hardware, with virtualized operating system and virtualized application. So with this, what happens is you get a definite small level of scalability for the resources within your limitation of your infrastructure, within the limitation of your infrastructure. Okay, so with this, what you have is you can create your own virtual machines, you can install your own operating systems, and you can run your own applications. Now the technology has evolved to the next level, where you can, rather than working within your infrastructure, you can pretty well. Okay, you remember I gave you a scenario where Ranjit was starting off with his organization around 20 years from now, maybe 15 years or 10 years from now, this would have been the scenario. But let's say, for example, Rehan wants to start off with an organization today, and he absolutely doesn't want to invest on any of the hardwares. He can start from building his infrastructure on the cloud. Okay, he can build his infrastructure on the cloud. He can bring his own virtual machine where he'll have his own hardware. On top of that, he'll run his own operating system. On top of that, he'll run his own application. For how long? As long as he wants to run it. How much it's going to cost him? It's not going to cost him anything initially. Generally, if somebody wants to start up with an organization as a fresher, you might need to invest. Looking back into the infrastructure, 20 years back, you might have to invest on the infrastructure. 15, 10 years back, you might have to spend on the infrastructure. But for now, maybe from 12, 13 years from now, and for right now, if somebody like Rehan wants to start off with an organization, he has to invest absolutely zero. Why? Because he can bring his infrastructure, he can spin up his infrastructure on the cloud. Next to where Netflix has been spinning up their infrastructure, next to where all the 500 Fortune companies are investing or keeping their infrastructure on the cloud today. So very much over there, you can keep your infrastructure. You being in India, you might spin up your VM anywhere in US, anywhere in UK, across 60 plus regions across the globe where you can spin up your infrastructure. Right? Okay, team. So I believe we got a fair enough idea of how infrastructure is being evolved. So from being infrastructure on premises to being infrastructure on premises, which is virtualized, to infrastructure on the cloud. Does this mean every organization right now keeping their infrastructure only on the cloud? Not true. Organizations do have their on-premises infrastructure as well as cloud-based infrastructure, and they do connect between this on-prem and the cloud infrastructure. Do you need internet to access the cloud? Possibly, yes. 90% of the time, people think the infrastructure can be accessed, the cloud infrastructure can be accessed only via internet. And we know internet has got very less security, right? So is that good? Mostly not. Can I access my cloud-based infrastructure even without connecting this infrastructure to the internet? The answer is yes. Now, to understand how that is possible, you got to wait for our paid courses, right? Now, let's get back to our slides. Okay, we know why we are doing cloud computing, right? So we know what is cloud computing right now. Let's have a look at some of the benefits of cloud computing. Let's have a look at some of the benefits. What are the benefits which we get? One of the benefits which I already gave you was scalability. How many of you heard of containers, containerization or containers? Kubernetes services, Dockers. Any of you heard of these terminologies? Give me a yes in the chat if you heard of these things. Okay, no, these are the advanced technologies, team. These are the advanced technologies which are being integrated into your cloud computing platform. When you're learning Azure, you're definitely going to learn Azure Kubernetes services, you're going to learn Dockers, might not be in the very depth, but you will have fair enough idea with which you can even build your career on Kubernetes services. So scalability, again, so other than scalability, the type of infrastructure is what I was talking about. That's how the containers came to my mind. We're going to definitely learn containers, and we're going to learn, we're going to understand, we're going to compare and contrast between containers and virtual machines and on-premises resources. So we are going to definitely look into that, app servers and all those things. But what I'm telling you is you do have wide range of cloud services, which includes virtual machines, which includes containers, which includes app services, which includes, no, this is all I'm talking about the compute engine itself. If you go beyond compute engine, we do have storage, we do have structured database, unstructured database, we do have network security and networks. All these things are included. All these things are benefits of your infrastructure. Now, when I talk about network security, right? Now, in case if you're starting up with your organization, with your own setup, right? You remember the infrastructure which I gave you where you're starting up with your infrastructure, or Ranjit was starting up with his infrastructure. He had to build his own infrastructure right from the scratch. As he's building his infrastructure right from the scratch, he had to take care of the firewalls, he had to take care of the public IP addresses, he had to take care of all those security things, he had to take care of the storage, every single thing all by himself. So that means by the time he bring in his infrastructure, he would have already spent a lot of money, right? So compare and contrast that with something which is being bringing up on the Azure infrastructure, where you can already have things readily available for you. You just got to spin them up and start using them. Of course, you got to pay for it, right? Nothing comes for free. But the thing is, since it has been deployed at a heavy scale, right? So things are being deployed at a heavy scale, and the way things are being designed, I don't know how many of you are aware that in data centers, 30% of your resources, okay, of your operational expenditure will go only on cooling system, right? And the way Microsoft has beaten it is by submerging their data centers. Wherever it is possible, they have submerged their data centers into the oceans. I don't know how many of you are aware of. The data centers on which we would be working on, most possibly they would have been submerged into the oceans. Now, 30% of the cost is being laid off straight away over there. And there are a lot of such small things, a lot of small things like that, because of which the cost, the scalability again, when you invest on the infrastructure at a smaller level, then you got to pay a lot for the infrastructure. But if you invest on the infrastructure at a higher level, so this is what you call it as the cost effect due to the scalability, right? So your capital expenditure or the capex will reduce much more when you purchase things in bulk, configure things in bulk. So that's another benefit which Microsoft is going to give us whenever we configure things on the cloud. Other than that, the other thing which we did discuss was scalability. You can do automation of the scalability. It's not just scalability on its own, but you can also automate your scalability. Okay, whenever, let's say, for example, how we are going to do it. Let me quickly give an example. If the VM on which the resources are running is going to go beyond certain limit of CPU or certain limit of RAM, then quickly clone it and bring it another VM, which is going to share your resources, right? So that's another benefit. Okay, so there are a lot of benefits of this particular infrastructure. Then we do have innovations, a lot of innovations which you can explore in Azure, like IoT, like AI related things can be explored onto Azure. Other than that, team, we do have a lot of other benefits, which we should consider. One of the highly demanded um, skill set in the market right now is on the cloud. Anybody is aware which specific version of the cloud which has got the highest demand in the market and which one is scaling with a rocket high speed with a high demand in the market? Anybody in the chat can give me the answer. Yes, Aisha, that's absolutely true. Azure is one of the fastest growing um, cloud computing platform. AWS is definitely the leading one right now in the market. There's no second thought about it. 40% of the market share of the cloud infrastructure with AWS and 30% of the cloud share with uh, Azure, but the speed at which Azure is growing for various facts, like let me give you some of the facts because of which Azure is growing. One is the integrity with identity management, really good. How many of you, those who are from infrastructure background, those who are working in the organization and your organization uses Office 365? If your organization uses Office 365, type I in the chat. I'm sure almost every corporate organization, as I have seen in the past, I can see Anand confirming to it, almost every organization they have started using Office 365, which gets integrated with Azure. Now, this is one of the reasons why Azure is leading in the market again. Okay, so yes. So when we compare and contrast, there's no doubt AWS is leading in the list right now. But the way Azure is growing, it's growing very rapidly, and there are very few people in the market to support. Now, when I say very few people, very few skilled people. There are a lot of people, those who claim, but the skilled people are very less. Now, comparing the infrastructure which is there on premises with a cloud-based infrastructure. Now, when we talk about cloud-based infrastructure, on the cloud base, we do have software as a service, platform as a service, infrastructure as a service, and on-premises we already discussed. Now, when I talk about software as a service, it is like logical apps, okay, and platform as a service where you do have already pre-configured platforms on which you just got to type your codes and you got to execute things like apps, like app services is one of the example of platform as a service. Infrastructure as a service where you're going to spin up your VM and you're going to work on it. Now, if I look into this particular chat, it's basically talking about who is going to take care of what responsibility. Now, when I talk about platform as on-premises, the complete responsibility goes with the on-premises itself, your local administrator. Okay, so that is your organization. Okay, and what responsibility Microsoft is taking? If you're working with software as a services, most of the responsibilities will be taken care by Microsoft, and very few responsibilities which are taken care by you. So what I'm telling you based upon this slide right now, since we are lacking time, let me tell you, depending upon what type of service you opt for, you will be having your shared responsibility, right? So responsibility always retained by the customer. The things like information and data will always retained by the customer, and devices from where you access and accounts and identities will always be with the customers. Responsibilities will always be with the cloud. These are the responsibilities with physical host security and physical network configurations. Network configuration we have to do in some of the cases, but the physical network layout is going to be with the cloud provider. As you can clearly see over here, this is the physical network which you're talking about, the network control which you're talking about. And physical data centers, again, will be completely maintained by the infrastructure, by the Microsoft. Okay. planning to host a virtual machine. As we decided we want to go for a virtual machine or we want to spin up a virtual machine, we need to plan for hosting a virtual machine. So we are going to start off with a network. In which network we are going to keep it? We are going to have a lot of resources in our infrastructure. So as I told you in the beginning, right? So let's say, for example, if this is my on-premises and if this is my cloud-based infrastructure, right? So possibly on the cloud, whatever resources I'm having, I prefer to keep all of them into a single net, right? Or prefer to keep all of them into a single network. So I got to decide where exactly I want to keep my virtual machine as. So the first thing possibly I need to decide is on the network. We're going to deal with networks in really great detail sometime later. Name the virtual machine, naming convention, we'll talk about it. Choose the location, like as you can see that like Azure is available in more than 140 countries across the globe, 60 plus Azure different regions. You can spin up your VM in any of these regions, depending upon from where your clients are accessing this particular resource. So of course, the pricing is something which need to be considered before you spin up your VM. So different sizes, we're going to deal with them in great detail much later. The storage part, we're going to deal with it much later. I think it's time for us to go ahead and spin up our virtual machine from the Azure portal. There are various ways in which you can spin up the virtual machine. Let's say, for example, if you want to spin up 10 VMs at the same time, what are you going to do? Are you going to do using the graphics, using the portal, or you're going to do it using the PowerShell? PowerShell is very powerful. JSON files are the ones which you're going to use over there. If somebody is using Python or any other script to spin up your VMs, you can definitely do that as well. But otherwise, the easiest way in which we are going to deploy it right now today is using the Azure portal. Okay, so let's go ahead and look into the portal and let's try spinning up one of our VMs and let's look into a couple of things associated with that today. Let me just quickly go ahead and bring up my new window. That's really wonderful, Anil. You can possibly implement your Python skills and you can use those skills to spin up your VMs on Azure using Python. That would definitely be added advantage for you in case if you know it. Automation using any of the programming language is definitely going to add on to it, definitely. Okay, so let me go ahead and let me spin up one of the VMs for ourselves for our today's session. For that, what I do is this is pretty much Azure portal. This is how it looks like. So let's have a look at spinning up our new resource right now. I can possibly look in for a new virtual machine right now. What I'm going to do, team, is I'm going to spin up a virtual machine on Azure with possibly potentially with Linux on it. And I'm going to host it on, possibly I'm going to deploy Apache on that so that you can witness from your end if you're able to access my website from your side. And then if time permits, we'll possibly look into a bit of security. Let's see if we can do that, right? Okay, so let's quickly create a new virtual machine right now. I'm going to create a new Azure virtual machine. We are going to discuss all the details of what is a resource group, what are the different scalability options which we are having, what is availability set, what are availability zones, and what are the different series of sizes. All those things we are going to learn in our upcoming series, right? So right now, let's wait for it. So my subscription, I would prefer to always keep it into possibly one of these are all the resource groups which I do have from my previous sessions. Let me create it inside test resource group, test VS. I have misspelled it. It was supposed to be RG. No worries. I call it as my first V. Which region I want to spin it in. You see, there are various regions across the globe. East US is one of the my preferred region for the labs. Why? If you want to know, you got to come for the further sessions. But otherwise, you can pick any region for that matter. Availability options, we will keep no availability options right now. Security type, we'll keep it standard right now. Wait for the detailed sessions which are coming later to understand more of it. Let's have a look at the images which you are having. I can choose the latest version of Ubuntu, but the simplest reason why I'm choosing 18.4 or 18.04 version is it is not going to ask me for my contact details. Okay, pretty good. I'm pretty much happy with working with, I can still reduce the size possibly with 1 GB of RAM and one virtual CPU should be good for me to work with, or maybe 2 GB of RAM. You see, as I change the RAM, it's going to change the pricing. Since I'm in India right now, it's going to show me the cost in Indian currency, but I can even get it in USD as well in case if somebody's logging in from outside India, right? Okay, pretty good. And I can even go for spot instances. You got to wait to understand what are these different options which you are having. But right now, for simplicity of our connectivity, I'm going to use password, but otherwise SSH is the best way in which well, I'll use Abed as my user ID, and I do have saved passwords. Okay, good. So let me also show or select certain ports to be kept open. SSH is the port I'm keeping it open, and HTTP is the port which I'm keeping it open so that we can also configure our website. Okay, now since I want this to be on a specific network, I'm not much concerned about the network. I'll straight away go to I'll straight away go to advanced and I'm going to write my small script over here. Okay, those who are from Linux background, anybody over here from Linux background, just type L in the chat so that I can understand you're from Linux background. Okay, you see what I have given is I'm calling out a bash shell and I'm switching user and I'm possibly providing like updating my software as well as I'm installing Apache services. So I don't have to potentially log into my VM to do this at the initial level. Even in case I want to check things for some good reason, if things are not working, I can potentially deploy these things much later as well by logging into this. But otherwise, my point is you can just do it from here in the beginning. They're all small things. We've got a lot of other options. If you see, we jump straight away from basics to the advanced, and then we are just going to go for review plus create and create our resource. But technically speaking, we could have done many more things in between. We would have decided on the disk, which we would have decided on the network, even on the basics, which we would have decided on the availability sets, availability zones. We skipped all of that for this particular demo session. So let's wait for our VM. It's going to take some time, maybe a minute or two. Okay. And for spinning up the VM, it's going to take a minute or two. Okay, things looks good. Running final validation. I can see how much it's going to cost me per hour. That's pretty decent. I can even configure like in case if I forget to shut down, I can even auto shut down this particular VM. So right now I'm just going to go ahead and create this VM. So 1 or 2 minutes team. Meanwhile, let me know if you have any queries related to the course, any questions. You're most welcome. Okay, there's a question coming in from Syed Ibad. Thank you so much. Highly appreciate your question, Ibad. Okay. Future prospects, if we see, will cloud computing take away on-premises data centers? The answer is no. Okay, it's always going to be a hybrid infrastructure in the future, where you're going to have your on-premises infrastructure and you're going to integrate that with a cloud-based infrastructure. Somebody can ask me why you need to have on-premises infrastructure. There are various good reasons why organizations are still holding on to their on-premises infrastructure, which they're having. Along the side, they're also having cloud-based infrastructure. Okay, and you can also see good number of organizations, those who are working completely on the cloud-based infrastructure, but there are organizations who are very much on premises as well as on the cloud. Hope that answers. Hybrid infrastructure is the future. I just asked to create only one VM, but it has created so many other resources associated with it. We're going to see and look into it sometime later. Yes, Ghulam Muhammad, you can ask your question.
So this course related things, how it will be helpful and how the course will be going to run.
Okay, sure. The course, I'm going to give you a complete syllabus of the course. It's going to be official curriculum with AZ104 examination. And what, how it's going to help you out in building your career is anybody who has got a knowledge of cloud-based infrastructure. Now, as I told you, there is, even though at this particular time where I can see yesterday or day before yesterday, I got a news of around good number of people have been laid off from some of the reputed MNCs. Even at this time, you can definitely see there's a huge demand for those who are on the cloud-based infrastructure. Okay, and Azure cloud infrastructure demand will keep on growing. It will never come down for sure because almost every organization is moving onto the cloud. If not completely moving onto the cloud, they are trying to keep their infrastructure into a hybrid model. And if they want to keep their infrastructure in the hybrid model, they should understand how their identities get integrated between on-premises and the cloud. And they should understand how the infrastructure is being spin up on the cloud-based infrastructure, all these things. So that's how definitely say, if you're a fresher, yes, cloud-based infrastructure is going to help you out. If you're already into the infrastructure, if you're already into the organization, and if in case if you're onto the on-premises infrastructure, this is definitely a big added advantage for you to get into the cloud-based infrastructure. I hope that answers the question. Okay. Meanwhile,
No, all those things are going to be taking class wise and charging some fees or all.
absolutely yes. Absolutely yes. Okay. Now coming back to how much time, how much duration will it take for you to learn, and how you're going to learn it. How you're going to learn it, you definitely got an idea with me. The similar way in which I've given you the teaser right now for your regular classes, pretty much similar way you're going to have your regular classes, right? But for how much it's going to cost, rest of the details, one of my teammates is going to share with you once I'm done with the technical discussion. Okay, so okay, what I did right now was I just copied this particular public IP address of this VM. So let me quickly check if I can access this over here. You see, you remember we had deployed Apache over here onto this particular IP address. So I'm able to see Apache's default web page over here, right? I'm able to see the default web page over here. Can I possibly edit it and modify it for my own requirement? Let's do it potentially. Okay, so how do I do it? I got to get into this particular VM first. So how do I do it? You remember while creating this VM, I had kept SSH port open. Is it a good security measure to keep SSH port open to the public? The answer is not. But for the lab practice for now, we would do it. But in real time, possibly we use something called as Bastion network and Bastion. That's what we are going to learn sometime later. Let me open my terminal, get access to this. Okay, this is my terminal. So let me do SSH to the public IP address which I'm having. Now this is IP address of my VM. Okay, I made a mistake. I'm going to do Control C straight away. So the mistake which I did was I did not specify the username. Otherwise, it will take username as my current login username. So let me specify it. Enter. Say yes. Password. I know my password. Okay, I'm pretty much logged into my VM. You can see my host name is my first VM. That's exactly the same name which I had given to this particular mission. If you can check over here, so my first VM is the host name which I had given. So that's where exactly we are right now. So let's try executing a few things over here. Right? Okay. So I know my website is being kept into var www, right? HTML. This is the location. Now, if I check for ls, I can definitely see there's a file called index.html. If I look into these files, the whatever's there in this file, that is what which is being replicated over here. Let me just quickly show it on my portal. Here it is. Let's do it quickly. Okay, let me remove this file. And index.html, that file is being removed. Okay. Okay. RF. Okay. rm minus hyphen if, sorry. Okay, permission denied. Sorry. There we go. The file is being removed. ls, the file is not there. So let me create a new file with the same name. For what possibly I do is I do cat. Otherwise, VI would be a better option, or nano also we can use. But index for make sure .html is the file. And I'm going to paste my script. Okay, I'm going to paste my script onto it. So rather than typing the whole script, now this is a HTML script, and I'm not a HTML pro. Okay, so cursor, there it is. Paste anyway. So this is basically a HTML script which will show me kind of thing like heading in blue color, which says, let's see what it says. It says, hi, welcome to Microsoft Azure administration, Hello control, right? So let me quickly check if I still have that index.html. Yeah, the file still exists. Now let me go back to my web browser and do a quick refresh. You see, I have designed my own website. I created my own website and I hosted it. Now, in case if you want to check, I'm going to paste this particular link in the chat so that you can check and give me an update that the website is up and live. See how easy it is. Just you got to spin up a VM, deploy Apache or any of the web servers over there, and then just paste your script and voila, you're ready to go, right? Okay, anybody can give me a quick confirmation just by clicking onto this link on your screen. Are you able to see my web server which says welcome to Azure administration AC104? I'm waiting for your responses. Thank you so much, Mohammed. Highly appreciate it. You see, it's globally up. And whenever I want to bring it down, thank you so much, Mohammed Shir. Thank you. Highly appreciate your inputs. Anand, thank you so much. Okay, now here is a quick thing which I thought let me share it with you right now. Firstly, for some good reason, I don't want this site to be up and alive, right? I'll quickly go back in over here and I'm looking for NSG, network security groups, which you're going to learn sometime later. Now, this is basically the initial level of security, network security groups. So let me look for my first VM, NSG, right? So that's a VM on which I'm right now on. Okay, so here if you look at my inbound security rules, it shows HTTP has been allowed over here. Come on. Okay, HTTP has been allowed. I can possibly disable this, or I can create another rule above this which says I don't want HTTP to be allowed. Okay, that means you can't access my website. Let me do it. Let me close it with okay, possibly okay, not removing this, adding one more rule over here quickly. With okay, from any source, destination, let me be okay, any destination, services, let me be very specific. I want it to be on HTTP and I want it to be denied. See here, yeah, denying over here. Possibly I'm going to keep it with a priority of 290. Okay, how you're going to set these priorities? You're going to learn it a little later. Okay, deny HTTP inbound rules and click on add. Now, as this rule is being added, when I go back to once this rule gets added, it's going to take a little time, a minute or two, for things to get executed. So once it's been added, if I go back over here, if I refresh. Okay, probably I need to, it would have stored this in the local cache sometime. I might have to open another web browser, or let me open up another web browser. So this is my new web browser. Let me copy the link from here and paste it. Yes, unable to access. I can see Abdul Burhan has just updated. So you will not be able to access it for sure because I have disabled the access. You see, that's how things work. No, this is just the beginning. Imagine if this is what I can give you in 1 hour of time, what will happen in 32 hours of session along with your practical sessions, right? Where you will have hands-on. It's trying to get connected, trying to get access. So it will definitely fail to access without a second thought, right? So even here I can try it. Okay, even here it is stuck right now, I believe, right? Okay, team, wonderful. I'm going to keep it open for those of you who just want to see it. The simplest way in which I can do it is just by removing or deleting this particular rule, and you should be able to access it back. As simple as that. Okay, hope you all enjoyed the session. You did learn something beneficial, something